Blind SA says visually impaired people are still struggling to access books in braille format despite last year's Constitutional Court ruling. The Copyright Act prohibited books from being published in braille without the author or publisher's permission. However, the act was declared unconstitutional and invalid. Let's discuss this further. We're joined via Zoom by Vice President of Blind SA, Christo de Klerk. Christo, good afternoon. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Let's unpack the implications after the ConCourt ruling to date. Why do you think it's taken so long for government to remove some of the barriers despite the Constitutional Court's ruling, which gave Parliament 24 months to amend the Copyright Act?
Yes, the Constitutional Court gave us immediate relief by crafting text that should be, or that had to be read into the 1978 Act to give it the constitutionality, whereby it granted us immediate exemption from copyright, which means that it is no longer necessary for us to grovel before publishers for copyright permission, and we used to get copyright permission only in 10% of our requests. In other words, 90% of the books that we wanted to make accessible, we were not able to do so. Now that was a victory, but it doesn't go all the way yet. What we still need is a cross-border exchange of accessible publications. There are two very good reasons why we still need it. The one is that if a book is already accessible in another country, we cannot distribute it here because our government has not yet ratified the Marrakesh Treaty, which would have solved that issue. That means that we have to make such books which are already accessible, we've got to make them accessible here, reinventing the wheel, at an average cost of about 24,000 Rand for the master copy of such a book, and also taking about 28 days to do so. Whereas it would have not cost us anything had government ratified the Marrakesh Treaty. Tuesday, the 27th of this month, is the 10th anniversary of the Marrakesh Treaty. 118 countries have already ratified it. More than 30 of them are in Africa. The other 4 BRICS countries have ratified, but not us. Now, up to now, government's reasoning was that they needed the legal framework to be in place before they could ratify the Marrakesh Treaty. The legal framework is now in place because the Constitutional Court crafted the text for us, crafted the legal framework. But since then, government has not moved. It has still not done anything. It is as if this is just not a priority. It is just not important to government. So that is why we are making a big issue of it now, going to march on Tuesday, advertising the slogans, ratify the Marrakesh Treaty now, hashtag 10 years too late, and so on.
Christo, thank you for that context. For those who don't understand what the Marrakesh Treaty is all about, talk to us about that and what it means in terms of the steps that government needs to take to perhaps rectify the treaty and the approaches in South Africa.
The Marrakesh Treaty came into existence in 2013. It was under the World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO. And it stipulates that countries who have ratified the Marrakesh Treaty, their visually or read disabled persons do not need copyright permissions to make books available in accessible formats. And such books may also be exchanged cross-border. To give you a practical example, our organization, Blind SA, give our members free access to an international digital library called Bookshare, which is hosted in the United States. It is the largest online library of accessible books. It has over 1 million titles available for download to print-disabled persons in countries which have ratified the Marrakesh Treaty. Now, more than about half of those books are not available to us because our country has not yet ratified the Marrakesh Treaty. So we say we are suffering a book famine because only 0.5% of publications are available in accessible formats.
Christo, thank you for that context. I actually wanted to look at what the impact of this delay by government has been or meant for persons who are blind, print disabled, or visually impaired. You've just now spoken to how much reading material is actually available at this point as well.
Yes, in South Africa we have 2 libraries for the blind. The one distributes audio and braille, the other one only audio. The 2 of them together have about 30,000 or so publications. So that's really all that is available, whereas we could have access to over 1 million. Now, those who are suffering are especially students and learners who do not have access to the material they need.
Christo, let me wrap up the conversation and perhaps just look at the way forward. You've spoken about the march come Tuesday and highlighted the book famine, hashtag book famine. Also, if government fails to meet the 24-month deadline as per the Constitutional Court ruling, what action are you going to take? All right, I think we are experiencing some technical difficulties as we wrap up that conversation. We'll leave it there for now. Vice President of Blind. Christo, I believe you're back. If you can hear me, let me just rehash that last question. I was just looking if government fails to meet that 24-hour deadline as per the ConCourt ruling, what action are you going to take? You alluded to a march that's set to take place next Tuesday as well.
Yes, we are marching on Tuesday to deliver memorandums to 4 government departments and to the President. We will be marching from Rietendale Park in Pretoria down Soutpansberg Road up to Durko, where we will deliver one of the memorandums. We are demanding that government should get off its hands now and ratify the Marrakesh Treaty to respect our rights to equal access to publications.
Christo, thank you for your time.
So if people want to support us, go to Blind SA's website at www.blindsa.org.za. We're not asking for your money, we're asking for your support. There's a link there where you can support us and give us your signature.
All right, Christo, thank you for that update. Thank you for joining us on the SABC, highlighting the plight of persons who are blind, print disabled and visually impaired, what they face in South Africa. Of course, this is on the back of the ConCourt ruling, having ruled the unconstitutionality of the Copyright Act. We're looking at how South Africa is faring in terms of ratifying the Marrakesh Treaty. Still, no updates have been made at this point. Blind SA's Christo de Klerk, Vice President, joined us to weigh in on the discussion and the implications to date in South Africa.